Welcome back, College Baseball Central and the Weekend Rotation fans. We're here for another wonderful Saturday. Been some interesting games on Friday night. I'm joined by Alex Day, Jake McKeever, Noah Darling, and AJ Sessions. Good morning, fellas. How we doing?
Doing good. Good night of baseball last night.
Great night of baseball. Super pumped here. Don't forget also Home Field Apparel, CBC15 is your code to use 15% off any first orders. Go on there and order all their stuff. They have an app. Download the app. Get through it. Download all that stuff. You all right there, Noah?
Yeah, I just had a little bit of an aneurysm, and because I'm on, we have our studio here, and I'm accidentally logged into that, as I assume Alex is too. And I'm commenting in the YouTube comments, "Oh, look at me."
Yeah, that's not the private chat, Noah. That's the YouTube comment section.
Just filling out our YouTube. Creating controversy already early this morning. Good to see. Good to see. Well, let's just get into it, boys. There's a lot of exciting stuff here. You know what? I'm going to go first to you, Noah, since you feel like you want to just get stuff off your chest early. Tennessee walks off Vandy. That's big for Tennessee, right? And bad for Vandy.
It was huge for Tennessee. Last night was like a party in Knoxville, and the commentators were saying it too. It felt like 2022 in there where they were the number one team and nobody could beat them. If Tennessee has that crowd and that kind of energy that they had last night, they're going to be all the way back. They, of course, have a lot of ground to make up in their record department, but they look like a top 10 team last night after about the eighth inning, and it was just an electric atmosphere. If that continues all weekend, they got a good chance to beat Vanderbilt and really gain that momentum back. I saw some Tennessee fans are saying that they're kind of like Ole Miss last year now, which is such a weird thing that you're kind of bragging about. But if that's the thing Tennessee fans want to do, then whatever works for them.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like Tennessee was feeling themselves. I mean, that's something we kept saying for a long time. Where's the energy? Where's this positivity that they had so much of last year? There was none of it. And then all of a sudden last night, the fans showed up. The weather's getting a little bit better. All of a sudden, they're starting to play a little bit better ball. I still don't love the fact that they can't score a ton of runs, but at least the pitching was on point last night to get that win. AJ, let's talk about South Carolina beating Florida, taking the series 2 of 3 already. What do we got in that one? That's just crazy to see after the last weekend and back to this weekend. Florida's in trouble here a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think this was – you saw South Carolina struggle last weekend with basically across the board fielding. Outside of game one, couldn't really hit with 2 outs. It was – pitching wasn't locked in. And then this weekend it's been the opposite. It's been you get a dominant Will Sanders for the first time all year. He actually had a strikeout pitch going. You had the offense continuing to rake. All 5 runs scored yesterday in the 5-2 win were with 2 outs. So that was huge. And then to score 5 runs in the first 2 innings and then not score again, but hold that Florida offense to 1 run after the Caglione solo home run in the first, that's a very potent Florida offense. And just to shut them down for basically the entire game was very impressive to watch.
Yeah, they looked like a top 5 team again after maybe not looking like it last weekend. They reminded us that they're still in the top dog there for the race in the East there, the SEC. I really liked what I saw last night. Lots of offense. Like you said, the 2-out hitting was tremendous to get those runs there. So if they can produce like that, they're really going to be really tough and probably one of the favorites to get to Omaha. Jake, Boston College beats UNC in extras. That's got to feel good for your Golden Eagles after they'd struggled the last 2 weeks.
It definitely did, and this almost felt like a series that Boston College really, really needed. I mean, they've been kind of down, struggling. A lot of people had them almost to be a host in super regionals, and now the past couple weeks, they're really kind of quickly approaching being on the bubble. So this was a weekend that I think that they really need, and it was really great to see Friday night obviously get out in front of the lead, and then they blew it in the bullpen, but not really to let them get to that and come back and win it in extras and play really resilient baseball, obviously bird ball and everything, but I really like what I saw from them because this is kind of a time where you do see a lot of teams go and fold the tent, and BC rallying was really kind of a good thing to see.
Yeah, I said very publicly last week that their bubble had burst and that they were probably going to be, a 2 or 3 seed. That they have to start winning games like that. And again, it's just another episode of where UNC loses a game that they probably shouldn't after coming all the way back. It's crazy to see what's going on in the ACC, but Boston College needed that one. That's huge for them. That's big for momentum. They need to go out and win this series, really, if they want to have a chance at getting back into the hosting section there. A team that is definitely going to host LSU beating Old Miss last night. Alex, why don't we get into that one?
Yeah, that was a fun game to watch. It was kind of cool to see like Will Furness, who's the son of LSU great Eddie Furness, kind of on the other side, and yeah, he hit that mistake a long way for Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens had one mistake pitch the whole night, and Will Furness ran into it and got that 3-run homer. But then LSU responds with a grand slam, and the top of the next inning, and that's kind of what this team's done all year. Somebody may get some runs on them, but then they immediately respond. I mean, it seems like almost every time somebody scores them, the next inning they're scoring too. And it's hard to hold this lineup down for any length of time. And it'll be interesting today. The guy Hunter Elliott's making his comeback. Mike Bianco said last night that he's going to go 40 to 50 pitches. So we'll see how that goes today. But that'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, 2 to 3 innings, probably 40, 50 pitches. They're going to hope they can get maybe 4 out of them, but that's it. I don't see a whole lot here from Old Miss. I mean, I really do believe this is all LSU this weekend. Paul Skeens, like we said last night, he does Paul Skeen things. He gets out there, even after giving up a 3-run homer, still attacking hitters, still getting after the zone. He's really, really good. I don't think there's any arguments there. But it was good to see LSU win and beat Ole Miss because I hate Ole Miss. So take that, Ole Miss. Noah, late last night, I don't even know if you guys were awake for this one. Stanford walks off Washington 3-1 in the 16th. That's got to be a little bit of momentum for Stanford, but cause for concern that they can't score, right?
Yep. It's the same thing every week. We talk about how they just don't have any offense, 1-1 going into extras, and then they go deep into the night, and Tommy Troy finally saves them with a 2-run yak to walk it off. But at some point, Stanford's got to help Quinn Matthews out a little bit when he goes out there and he shuts Washington down for the most part, and then he goes out there and he can't even get a win. He only give up 1 run and no win. It's absurd, and it's hurting Stanford just a little bit too much against these teams like we saw it against Oklahoma. We saw it last week. Now we're seeing it against Washington. At some point, Stanford's got to win the games that we expect them to win by like 11 instead of 2.
Yeah, and this is a Washington team also that had been scoring 8 runs a game. So it's not like,
Sure,
they held them down, so that was great on the pitching side. But where's the offense? I mean, they have so many guys last year. They hit 15, 20 home runs, and they're doing nothing this year compared to that. It's really strange to see that the lack of offense is really bad down there. But they won. It was a walk-off style. Maybe that's something they build off of and continue forward here if you're Stanford. AJ, what happened to Wake not scoring any runs? Speaking of no offense, 3-0 to Pitt, not even putting up anything?
Yeah, I mean, and Pitt is one of those teams who you look at in the schedule, and if you're an ACC team, you're probably chalking that up as we want to we're winning that series and we want to sweep, just realistically. And this might just be one of those baseball is weird games where it just – the Wake offense that we've seen be just so dynamic and so dominant all year, from Tommy Hawk, Brock Wilkin, Nick Kurtz, just to Adam Cecere, and have just nothing going against really a pitching staff that isn't all that dominant. It's one game. I'm not too worried about it if I'm Wake, but if anything, it might serve as a wake-up call as, hey, we still actually got to show up and play our brand of baseball. We can't just show up and scare people based off of our reputation this year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that might be a good thing for Wake here to have this little midseason bump and be like, hey, it's not all roses here. We got some work to do still. It's not over yet. The pitching was great, though, and really facing that pedestrian staff of Pittsburgh, not scoring any runs, not hitting the ball. Maybe that wakes them up today, and maybe they pound it out. But we'll see. It was kind of weird to look up and see 3-0 on the scoreboard, and then that was a final. I was like, oh, maybe Pitt puts them up early and then waits to come back. 3-0 final was kind of strange to see in that one also. Jake, Duke walks off Louisville. Tell us about this one here. Walk off Granny.
Walk off Granny. That's the thing that every kid dreams about, is having the walk off Granny, and this one really kind of hurts for the Louisville faithful. I mean, it seems like this is a team that has never really put it together except for that one weekend in Houston. And they're never playing bad enough to get blown out, but at the same time, they're starting to add up a lot of these games. And the kind of mantra of the ACC is you can't win every game, but you shouldn't lose every game. and they're starting to kind of add up here at Louisville to be cause for concern. As I know that they wanted to be hosting there. You know, they always say that the road to Omaha goes through Louisville, and if they start adding up more of these games and losing to teams that they should beat, it's going to be a long, long road for Louisville in the tournament.
Yeah, they're slowly starting to find their way out of hosting. You know, a lot of people had them as a top 8 team, you know, a few weeks ago. Now they're on that bubble at 16. Now, you know, they're looking at maybe falling out of here because they keep losing ACC series. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I hope that Louisville can turn it around and figure something out. But right now, a struggle. And when you get walked off on, even with a grand slam, it sucks coming back the next day. So, Alex, Georgia taking 2 from Arkansas after, you know, people like me ranked them up in the top 2. What's going on? Arkansas plays so well, and then Georgia just decides they're going to win some games now in the SEC.
Well, you know, Georgia can hit. I mean, Charlie Condon's one of the best freshmen in the SEC. It's him and Ethan Petrie are the 2 best freshmen in the SEC this year. And, you know, a lot of people just don't know who he is or that Georgia can actually rake because their bullpen has been so bad. And so they haven't been able to close out games. So, I mean, Arkansas kind of scuffling a little bit, and Georgia's able to take advantage. And, you know, Georgia's one of those teams that if you sleep on them, they'll beat you. And that's exactly what's happening to Arkansas. Hopefully Arkansas can salvage a game from this series.
Yeah, they can't get swept. They really need a win here if they want to stay where they're at here in the top side of the SEC. But I believe that this is just another example of SEC being SEC. You can win or lose any single game because there's so much talent in this whole conference. And if you're not playing your best ball, if somebody else is playing good ball that day, they're going to beat you. So you got to really be on your toes there in the SEC. I think that this is good for Georgia. I think that it's bad for Arkansas. I think Arkansas still has a chance of being in the top 8. Mark is an absolute sicko for hosting on his bachelor weekend. Yes, for all those who don't know, I am down here in Arizona for my bachelor weekend. Got a nice little pool down here by the house here. Yeah, woke up nice and early. We'll just say the beverages were flowing, but that's why I got a little lost voice. I was at the ball game last night at Oregon State. We'll talk more about that, but thanks, guys. It was I'm glad to be hosting. Thank you. Notre Dame beating Virginia. Noah, this is not a good look for Virginia when they keep losing these games, and then Notre Dame's back.
I've said it for a few weeks now where Virginia loves to do this thing where they just fall apart, kind of like here's an obscure kind of comparison, Iowa basketball. They start off so hot and they just completely fall apart until the postseason. I know that doesn't mean a lot for you coastal guys, but Iowa hoops in the Midwest is known for just falling apart, and Virginia did it last year. They look so good, and then they just – for some reason lose that shine, and then all of a sudden they're a 2 or a 3 seed. I'm worried about it with Virginia. We're going to talk about maybe some of their players later on when we talk about the best players in the country, and yet they lose games to Notre Dame. They lose a game here and there. They lose a series last week. Let's get it together, Virginia. You guys are so good, but playing poorly. It's very weird, but it's the ACC.
The ACC, again, it's a coin flip every single day. I don't understand it. I just cannot figure this conference out. I think that Wake and Virginia are top 8 teams, and then they turn around and lose games like they did this weekend. I don't get it. They need to figure their stuff out right now. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, AJ, Coastal beating Southern Miss 15-7. Does this say more about how good Coastal is, or does this say more about that the rest of the pitching staff for Southern Miss is not up to par?
Well, I mean, I think it says how good Coastal is because Coastal did damage against Tanner Hall and knocked him out early, and not many teams have been able to do that. Tanner Hall is one of the most talented pitchers in college baseball, and Coastal, I think, put up 7 against him in 3 innings. It was wild. But I mean, Coastal, they're going to win this series because when you get to Tanner Hall, you are correct. Southern doesn't have the depth of pitching that they had last year. So I find it very hard for that offense not to take advantage of the lack of pitching depth. And they're going to host a regional, and I guarantee you they're going to get either an ACC or an SEC team as their 2 seed, and then the other conference is their 3 seed. And then both of those teams are going to be like, we really should have played better so we could host, because they're not going to want to go up to Conway, South Carolina. It's going to be – no one wants to play there. It's a launching pad, and they know how to hit in that ballpark.
Yeah, and they just keep pounding the ball. They keep getting offense. They keep finding ways to just destroy the ball. Knocking Tanner Hall out early last night really set Southern Miss back tonight, because that's really hard when you have to use that much pitching early when they don't have a ton of depth already. Big for Coastal, really bad for Southern Miss. Southern Miss is, they're on the outside of top 25, in my opinion, looking at it now. Jake, what happened to Texas losing 2-1 to Oklahoma? One run again? Come on.
Yeah, this is just another definition of the Big 12 being weird. Everything on paper was telling you that Texas was going to roll. I mean, they've been hot the last couple weeks. OU's kind of been going the opposite way. Lucas Gordon goes Friday night, pitches tremendously, only allows the one run, and then the bullpen, which has kind of been Texas's flagship during their long run, lets them down late. But I think the real story of the night is that offense really only getting one run against an OU staff that at times has really struggled to get outs. I think that they're going to need a lot from Porter Brown and Eric Kennedy today. And I still like them to kind of come back and take these next two series. But again, the Big 12 is just such a weird conference that no one really knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, again, going to another Big 12 game here. Texas Tech crushes Baylor, Alex, 10-1. That's good for Texas Tech. That's like a get-right series here against Baylor, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be. Baylor is not a good baseball team, and Texas Tech, still in the mix for, the Big 12 title. I mean, like almost every Big 12 team is at this point, really. But, they gotta sweep Baylor. I mean, it's not a good baseball team.
All
and
right,
there
I
goes
guess
Mark.
Mark's hitting the cabana.
Mark had to
Seems
look
like.
at the tweet I tagged him in and he got too excited. He's such an ego guy. He saw his name pop up and had to look at it.
Wait, he's back.
I'm back. I'm back. I don't know what happened there. Bachelor party shenanigans here. I'm still alive. We're okay. All right. Sorry about that. Noah, we're going to go on to one that I know holds deep and true to your heart, and I was there last night. Oregon State holds on to beat Arizona State 13-11, but Arizona State was down 11-1 and came all the way back. Tell us a little bit about that one, and I'll let some of my insight go too.
Yeah, I was following your tweets with it, and like you said, I saw 11-1 and thought, well, hey, typical Mark ruining the Arizona State parade. And then I checked with your tweets a little bit later, and all of a sudden, Oregon State hangs on to win 13-11. What in the world? So I went back and I saw the 4-run inning and then the 6-run inning from Arizona State. I'm feeling good about taking the series if we're able to get 10 runs late in the game like that, but maybe not give up 11 before then.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see, Garrett Forster started off hot, 2-run home run to start, and then it just, 5 runs in the first for Oregon State. They kind of started to cruise there for a little bit, and then Arizona State's like, hey, we still hit home runs in our ballpark. That's why there's 7 of us hitting over 330, and we hit home runs in this ballpark, and they started crushing the ball. Really good to see, though, a good series there. Both teams actually hitting the ball. Oregon State hit some home runs there. I think there was 8 home runs in the game last night, so it was really interesting.
Mark, I do have a question before we move on. Did the kind of downturn of Oregon State pitching staff, was this after beer sales concluded at the stadium, or were you able to still kind of keep the Bachelor vibes going as Arizona State was clawing their way back?
So I will say that the vendor accidentally opened a couple Dos Equis and they were left behind a trash can for me. So I was definitely loaded up for the rest of the game. I was good to go. The security guard personnel were great last night. That stadium was terrific. They were a really great host to us. Me and my 13 guys down here, we had a freaking blast, and they really did take care of us. So I really appreciate everybody down here at the Phoenix Municipal Stadium. They really took care of us, and it was really good. The downfall started to happen. Yeah, I started not live tweeting and standing up and talking to people, and lots of people were coming around. Pat Casey was at the game last night too. So we were just kind of walking around talking with everybody. But then all of a sudden, Arizona State starts punching back and scoring some runs. And, we had to get a little loud there in the 9th inning. So it was good to see. Oregon State fans really showed up. I don't know how many people watched that, though, but it was like 50-50 Oregon State, Arizona State fans down in that series. So good to see. Okay, AJ, I'm going to let you talk about your Campbells. 16-9, they were struggling early in that game. People were writing them off as being not a good team, and all of a sudden they just pound their ball back in the way. Tell us about this Campbell team.
I mean, it's been the same story with them all year. They're pitching not the deepest in the world. They do have some frontline talent, but that offense is going to carry that team, and that's what you saw yesterday. They have the ability to drop an 8 spot on you in a hurry. It's one of the most potent teams. It's probably the most potent offense in the mid majors. just because that entire 1 through 9, they can get on base and they can hit the ball a long way. And they really, for how well they hit and how much power they have, they don't strike out too terribly much. So it's, competitive at bats up and down the lineup. So it's not a lineup anyone wants to face. And there's a reason that a lot of us are considering them when we're kind of drawing up who our 16 hosts are going to be.
I feel like if they had this offense last year, they would have been an Omaha team with the pitching that they had last year. So it's good to see that they have this much offense going right now. Hopefully they continue to do that. I have them in my top 16. They're on the bubble of being top 8, again, with East Carolina, who did not play yesterday. Those are 2 mid-majors that are really close. Jake, Vatech pounds Florida State. You were at the game. Tell us a little bit about this one. 24-9.
Yeah, it really kind of a crazy game. And for as much as people like to call Marcus Sicko, I think every Florida State faithful that stuck around for that game is an absolute psychopath. Florida State got up early, 5-0, and then there was a huge raccoon that started running around the stadium. That, Virginia Tech had the rally tits last year, so I guess they're going to go with the rally coon this year. Outscored them 24-4 after, including an 8th run, 9th inning. That was really kind of the exclamation point. And it was a very quiet Florida State dugout, I would say. And I think that this is a team that, we never want to say anybody's out in April, but I think that 44 streak is going to be coming to an end here this year, unfortunately.
Well, if there's raccoons running around, they might have to call our boy Grant to come down there and go grab that raccoon and take him out of the stadium. So that's just a lot of offense late there in that one, though. So good to see. But, whoa!
Sorry, I tried to get to the mute button and I couldn't.
Got to the exclamation point is what you got to. Alex, Miami defeating Georgia Tech 4-2. Kind of pedestrian, boring win, but it's still a big win for Miami, right?
Yeah, Miami needs to rack up as many wins as they can against competition that's frankly just not as good as Miami. I mean, Georgia Tech's just not as good a baseball team as Miami. And Miami should win that game in that series, and so they're just taking care of business and doing what they need to do.
It's true. I think that this is just another example of Miami's pitching is getting a little bit better every single week. They're getting used to this. They have a lot of young guys. Going out there and winning these 4-2 ball games is huge for them. So good to see Miami moving forward, especially if they want to be in that mix of possibly hosting again. Noah, a team that we both thought might host this year and has not played well. Purdue downs Maryland 10-8. What is the Big Ten? I just don't. I think
there's
Maryland
no way you watched that game.
I 10-8. I was keeping track of it on my phone because I have Maryland baseball. I follow them, and I was so frustrated sitting in the stands there in Arizona State going, how do you lose 10-8 to Purdue?
Well, Purdue's not horrifically bad. They're not, good, but they aren't as bad as you might think. But yeah. Maryland, we just can't figure this team out. Some of these people in our poll like to rank them really high every week for some reason, and then they just go out and they lose games like this to Purdue. I will say, Mark, the way you worded that, for a second, I thought you were implying that we thought Purdue might host this year at some point. And I thought, maybe you've had too many dumpster Coronas or whatever it was. But
Dos Equis.
Yeah. Dos Equis.
Oh, excuse me. But, yeah, Maryland is just one of those teams where Nick LaRusso has been really, really good for him. And when you combine him with Matt Shaw, you think maybe they have that magic puzzle that they had last year. But I just don't see him as a top 16 team right now. And it's not going to help when you go out and lose Friday night games to Purdue. You got to win those games when you have Jason Savacool and that pitching rotation with Nick Dean.
Yeah, they just have not been sharp on Fridays, and it's been really crazy to see, especially in the Big Ten. You got to win out some of these series, and they're just not doing the job. Jake, Oregon beats Cal 5-4, kind of a boring game, but Oregon needs to keep winning these wins or piling up these wins in Pac-12, correct?
Yeah, they definitely need to kind of claw themselves out of the hole that they created with the early season. But I think that as America kind of forgets about the Pac-12 around this time of year, unfortunately, Mark, that if Oregon State just gets the wins, that's really all that they need. They don't really need to dig into the box scores and kind of get into the nitty gritty with them. They're really just looking at the number at the top because they have to pick a lot of these West Coast teams. Because as much as people like to say it, there's SEC bias. I think that there's a lot of West Coast bias because they have to get some of these teams in.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they're just I think Pac-12 is going to get 5 teams in, so it's really going to depend on where they finish in the standings because people don't stay up and watch the games out here unless you're a bachelor party sicko like me. And we stick around and watch them all. So Alex, another West Coast game, UCLA beating USC 9-3. UCLA maybe riding the ship and actually finally scoring runs.
Yeah, it's good to see their offense has really struggled. We know their pitching is elite, but yeah, the question with UCLA has been the offense. So yeah, it's good to see them put up some good runs against a pretty solid USC team, kind of a resurgent USC team. That I thought had a good chance to take this series, but UCLA is came to play for sure.
Yeah, it was good to see them go out and punch a little bit back at this USC team who had been hot until Oregon State stomped them. And now I believe that this USC team is trying to struggle to find themselves again. But they have a good chance today. Go out there and play UCLA again. We'll see what happens. They need to really fight back this series if they want to have a chance at being in that top 25 conversation still.
Now, Mark, there is something about UCLA. I think they probably have the best chance of a Pac-12 team to be that second host, because you look at who's in front of them schedule-wise. They go to Stanford and play. They still have to play Oregon State, and then they go at Arizona State. There are a lot of quality wins, and if they can go through and win 2 of those 3 series, and yeah, they also have to win their series against Cal. But if they can go through and win 2 of those 3 big series, that puts them right in the higher seed hostings. But we've seen West Coast teams get hosting, get that seed because they're a West Coast team as opposed to another SEC or ACC team. So I think their future is still in front of them to host.
And we see it every year where a team gets hot those last 3 weeks, and the committee gives them a lot of leeway because they get hot late and they push them up the standings really fast. So I think you're right. I think UCLA's got a big chance to move forward there in that opportunity. But I also believe Oregon State's kind of in that same boat, because if they can beat UCLA, they might be that second team out west to host other than Stanford. So we'll see what happens. I believe you. I like it, though. I love going down to that series. The UCLA and Oregon State series is going to be awesome here for the remainder of the Pac-12. Oklahoma State beats Kansas 15-10. AJ, is this even any news, or is this just another boring Big 12 game?
It's weird to call a high-scoring baseball game boring, but I mean it's what we expect, especially out of those 2 teams right now. Neither team has really the pitching to hold a quality offense down for an entire game, and so it's just it feels like it's almost a game of like make it take it, where it's going to be higher scoring. Offense is the name of the game. And I think we saw the better team win, but it's the Big 12, so you can't count on them winning the series.
Yeah, was that better team question mark? Because we really don't know at this point whether Oklahoma State's the better team. But yeah, I agree with you, AJ. It was interesting to see at least finally Oklahoma State putting up runs like we thought that they could all year. Just happened to be against Kansas, who also put up 10, which is kind of frightening if you're Oklahoma State. Okay, who did something cool? Alex, I'm going to let you start. Something cool this week. Let us have it.
Well, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but Will Furness getting that hit on Paul Skeens, getting that home run on Paul Skeens, just because of the history of those 2 programs, and with Mike Bianco being his dad's coach and his dad being the LSU legend, and just kind of the storylines behind it. I thought that was a cool moment.
Yeah,
and then on top of that, what Paul Skeens said earlier about about not many beer showers, and then he gets hit for a home run.
It is a little bit of baseball karmatic justice when that happens. I do love the confidence of Paul Skeens. I do know that once that happens, I can guarantee there was going to be a home run in that game to get off of him. So you just don't tempt the gods, especially when you're playing well. But that was good to see.
I will say, though, that Paul Skeens did strike Will Furness out the other 2 at-bats he had.
Yeah. But doesn't matter. Everybody's going to remember the home run. Even if you go 1 for 3 with a home run and 2 Ks, everybody's going to be like, oh, but that home run was blasted. Jake, something cool.
I'm going to go a little bit off the deep end here. Dallas Baptist has quietly won 12 in a row in Conference USA, including a dismantling of Louisiana Tech. They're now 3-1 against them in Conference USA. They're one of the weird conferences that plays a few teams twice. But Dallas Baptist winning 12 in a row and kind of catching the hearts of a lot of these teams in Conference USA, I think that's like a really cool thing to see.
is it really off the deep end or is it just off the Jake end? Because I feel like you keep going off the deep
Jake,
end
I
for all
do
these
hate
cool
Dallas
things.
Baptist.
No, I mean it's a big deal for Dallas Baptist. They, for a long time here, the last five years, they've been very good and they've been competitive. Last year didn't feel so much. This year kind of feels like it's a little weird. We'll see. 12 straight wins is big for anybody, though. Noah, something cool.
Well, it was kind of 1.5 things. So I wanted to go in and say the double play in the Vanderbilt game. Hopefully, I didn't steal that from AJ. But the Tennessee just coming back and winning, and then it was revealed that the fur coat was back. The hat is back in the dugout. I think Tennessee might also be back. We'll see this weekend. They could very well get shut out the next 2 games, and nobody would be surprised. But I think that Tennessee getting their swagger back is very cool for college baseball, whether people want to admit that or not. But the fact of the matter is that when Tennessee is better and their fans are better, the sport is better for it. It may not be healthier, but we're better.
It felt a lot like 2022 last night, watching them hit that walk-off. Knew it was gone. The whole team explodes. The whole crowd explodes. That's the energy that Tennessee needs if they want to push forward through this season. So good to see that. AJ, something cool.
I mean, I'm going to go just the default is Ethan Petrie. I mean, in the past 2 weeks, he has 5 home runs, including home runs off of Paul Skeens, Hurston Waldrop, and Brandon Sproat. None of which were cheapies. They didn't have an exit velocity of 92. They got blown out at Founders Park. It's what he's doing is unreal. And just to continue to be able to do that, he's already set the freshman record at South Carolina for home runs in a season. And, don't look now, but he's getting within striking distance of making a real run at Tommy White's record that he set. And if he gets that, then he'll be a home run away from breaking South Carolina's single season home run record as a freshman. And I don't think looking at him right now, you doubt him doing that.
No, I like him moving forward. I think that he does break all those records. The guy seems locked in, and it hasn't been like a few week thing. This has been a whole season that he's just been tearing the cover off the ball. He started off so hot that even myself, I was like, there's no way he continues this for a whole season. He's a freshman. That just doesn't happen. Like, you can be really good for short periods of time, but when you've been this good for 2.5 months, there's something going on, and it's something special there down there in South Carolina. So
yeah, maybe you're just
you can
good.
almost guarantee that he's going to be at LSU next season.
Hey, check the
I was
YouTube
about
comments.
to say that.
Check
Welcome
the
to
comments.
LSU.
No
I forget I
chance.
can do this. See, I don't patronize me, Alex. Although we had the same idea.
You see, the NCAA itself doesn't hate South Carolina. They hate NC State. So there's not going to be that internal karma to force good players away from their school.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to keep NC State out of every tournament so we can take good players away from them. My something cool is going to be a West Coast. Travis Bazzana stole 5 bases on Tuesday night in one game, and he has 12 stolen bases in 7 games, or 7 days, 4 games. The guy has been literally just getting on base and stealing every base. He has 12 runs in those 7 days also. So he steals a base, gets in scoring position, then scores. It's huge there. Also, Garrett Forrester hit 2 huge home runs last night for the Beavs. Was awesome. All right. Let's get into the pickup. What do we got, Alex?
Boom. First up.
Well, welcome to the party, pals. Some of us got started early. Noah, defend your Vanderbilt.
Yeah, just had a big Vandy. They're the hotter team right now. They are, in fact, sizzling where Tennessee was ice cold. Should have known. Should have known that would be enough to go the opposite, especially when I picked it.
I'm glad to see Noah pick Vanderbilt. Makes me feel better about my Tennessee pick. AJ.
Hey, sources say I'm winning this thing.
Sources who are bad at math.
Yeah, I mean, this was, for me, Tennessee needs to win this series to turn their season around, but to need to win a series against Vanderbilt is always a tall task. I went with Vandy just based off of how they're playing. Even when one part of that team isn't living up to potential, the other parts are right there to pick them up. And if you look at the game even last night, unless the pinch hitter, golfs a slider out at his back foot, then Vandy wins that game. They were a pitch away. So it's not like they got blown out. it was cool though to see Tennessee's environment bounce back and be like, oh my goodness, it gave you flashbacks to how raucous that environment could be and was last year.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird rivalry here in the state of Tennessee, but it's big for Tennessee to come back there and actually show that they can play baseball, and it is exciting still there. Jake, Vandy.
I really just wanted to see Vandy's glorious logo. A lot of times we pick on logos. I just wanted to see Vandy's. I still like Vandy to come back because every time that everybody wants to shit on Vandy and talk about how bad they are, they seem to just respond and play out of their minds. And I could definitely see them doing that because there's been all this talk about how Tennessee's back, the daddy hat, the pimp coat, it's all back. Well, Tim Corbin's, tightening up his belts a little bit, saying, all right, let's clean this up. Let's get the bullpen out there. And I think Vandy will come back in these next 2 games.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, Vandy still has a really good shot in this series, and Tennessee kind of dispelled that adage that solo home runs won't kill you. I mean, they had 4 solo home runs, and that was all they needed. But this Vandy pitching staff is really good, and that's kind of where I gave them the edge to over Tennessee. I thought that they might be able to keep this lineup down, and they still got a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I liked Tennessee because I could just keep taking Tennessee for some reason. I love McGlutton for punishment, but I thought that they really could turn their season by winning this rivalry series. So this was big first win for Tennessee last night. Moving on. Jake, you took Boston College versus North Carolina. I don't know why we just keep believing North Carolina, but they do have the better logo here. But Jake, I'll let you go first since you got the win last night.
I did get the win last night, and I think that this was a desperate team being backed into the corner versus a lackadaisical team that has been playing below their potential. I think BC really needed this weekend to kind of get their confidence back going against a talented UNC team. And the other side is I think that this was kind of, in my eyes, the last chance I would ever ride Boston College. So if they lost this series, they were done. So I want to give them one last chance.
One last ride with Jake. Alex?
I was really off the BC train, and I think UNC is the more talented team. Now Jake is right. They do kind of play lackadaisically. They don't seem locked in and focused, and they lose games that they shouldn't. But I still think that they're going to win this series.
Yeah, Noah.
Yep, I'm still confident too. BC kind of reminds me of a Tommy White NC State team where they're in the picture and then all of a sudden it's bye-bye. So I'm kind of waiting on BC to fade. Maybe that's happening now, but I guess if they're winning game 1, it's not.
AJ?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased because I randomly tuned in during a midweek game and watched Boston College give up 10 runs to 1-24 Dartmouth. So I trust that North Carolina's offense can get it going and that the pitching staff can hold Boston College in check enough for the offense just to win a couple of games.
Yeah, I was all UNC here. I'm so down on Boston College. I haven't ranked them in 3 weeks now. I don't think that they're the team that everybody believes in the country that they can be. Boston College is not back. I'm still on North Carolina here winning this weekend. The next series. All right, Alex. Well, not the best for us, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, it's hindsight's 2020, right? But I really thought that that Sproat and Waldrop would be able to hold this lineup down. Apparently, I was wrong. And South Carolina is, I mean, they're legit. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're gonna challenge for the SEC East title, and they're gonna challenge for a top 8 national seed.
Yeah, for me, hindsight's 2023, Alex, and I keep picking against South Carolina for no reason to keep underestimating them. I keep putting them high on my poll, but then when it comes down to pick them, I'm like, oh, I like the other team. I got to get off this bandwagon here. Noah, I'll let you go next with the South Carolina pick. It was a good pick.
Sometimes it's just nice to win one, and it feels like it's been forever since I started 1-0 in one of these things where we have a Thursday series and it's Saturday and I've already won. It never happens. So I guess I'm back, and so are the Cox. It's nice to watch them play. It every time I watch it feels more and more like 2010 with the crowd and everything's rolling. All the little things go their way. let's keep it rolling. Obviously, last week wasn't great, but we're back. It's been erased.
Jake?
See, I think I'm anti-Mark, where I have South Carolina so low in the polls and then constantly pick them. And I like I said, I mean, AJ I'm sure could tell you how low I am on the Cox, but it was honestly kind of refreshing to see them come out and play good baseball and flush the Vandy series last week. And yeah, no, it's really great being on this side. I'm a little bit more accustomed to it than you are, but
AJ? Pretty easy one here.
Yeah, Florida hasn't won a game at Founders Park since 2018. So a little bit of insider information there. And if you look at how South Carolina's just hit, ace pitching the entire year, it's almost been like the ace pitching has not been the ace pitching. So for me, this was, I trust in that offense. I trust that pitching staff, and I was rewarded with a 1-0 start to the pick'em.
It was good to see Will Sanders get out there and be Will Sanders again. If he can do that, this team can make a really deep run. That would be my opinion on that South Carolina team. Moving on to the next one. All right. Well, Jake, Southern Miss, I was with you, man. I thought that maybe this is how they turn their season. What do you see here?
I was thinking kind of more of the same too. And I was checking the D1 baseball site to try and see who Coastal Carolina has played, and they're quietly 10th in the nation in their polls. And I really kind of dug deep, and this was after I'd submitted my polls, and I was like, oh, they're actually like really good and not flying under the radar. So this was kind of, I guess, a wake me up introduction to Coastal Carolina for me, at least. I know that they beat Texas State earlier in the season, but I think that I thought if they can beat Southern Miss on Friday, I think that they have a really good chance to win these next two games. So it's going to be a tall task to kind of bounce back for Southern Miss.
Yeah, I know, AJ, I'll go to you next because you and I have had the conversation of who's the best team in the Carolinas. And we keep coming back to this Coastal team and saying they could be right up there in the top three. You picked them pretty easily here?
Yeah, it's a team that I will not pick against at home. They know that ballpark. The offense is built for it. And, even though Southern Miss was coming in with a guy like Tanner Hall, there's only one Tanner Hall in that team. So even if they would have lost yesterday, it wouldn't really have, been that detrimental to them winning the series. But the fact that they did win yesterday means that team's probably looking to sweep.
Yeah, I feel a little bit down after that loss in Tanner Hall, really not being able to do much against that lineup. So that was a tough start. Noah?
Yeah, just so hard to pick against Coastal Carolina right now. They're not only just a top 25 team, they're probably like top 15 or so. We were kind of slow to rank them ourselves, but they've shot up our rankings pretty quickly here. In Southern Miss, it's just so easy to pick against the state of Mississippi this year.
Alex?
Well,
That's
it
gonna
hurt
ruffle some
me.
feathers.
It would hurt me to pick either one of these teams, but I had to go with Coastal Carolina. I really started paying attention to them more after they beat Texas State, a few weeks ago. And yeah, this is a really good baseball team, and not somebody you want to see in your regional or go to their regional.
Nope, they just seem to keep piling up quality wins. So that was all Coastal last night. Moving on to the next one. A&M and Kentucky, we haven't seen any of this one yet here. So you know what, Alex, I'm going to let you go ahead and start here since you took Kentucky here.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Kentucky last week against LSU. They really battled. They don't play a typical SEC, style baseball. They have what they do. They're gonna bunt. They're gonna steal. They're gonna, manufacture runs, and they are really good at it. Like, they have their way to win, and they know what that blueprint is, and they stick to it. And I think they've got a really good pitching staff. They don't have like some big name that's going to blow you away, but they just got a lot of really quality pitchers and a lot of experience on this team. And I think they're going to give A&M some issues.
Jake, does this like pick against your heart so that, you win-win?
Not exactly. A&M hasn't had a starter win a game since early March, and yet they keep winning all these SEC series. And I think it's time for the magic dust to kind of wear off of them. They're traveling on the road. I think it's their furthest road game that they'll have this season. And again, when your Friday guy only goes 2 innings every week and allows 6-7 runs, that's not a very good recipe. And you have to think that eventually this bullpen's just going to give out because they're throwing starter-like innings. And this just seemed like the perfect storm for A&M to lose. I mean, Kentucky makes you fight for every single out, both on offense and defense. And A&M at times kind of gets lackadaisical on in the field as well. And I think Kentucky would kind of take advantage of that.
I don't think it's any sort of pixie dust. I believe that it's just a cult down there. That's okay to say. Noah, A&M.
Yeah, I was hoping to see one played already, but I like to see A&M in this one. I'm surprised that so many people picked them, but I think Kentucky just kind of had the most impressive 1-2 series of all time, and now people are kind of getting caught up in that. But A&M is kind of subtly creeping up there, and they're doing their thing. Last year we slept on A&M, and what happened? They made it to Omaha. I don't think that A&M team has this much pixie dust left in the tank, but I don't trust Kentucky much. I would like to see them actually win a series that gets me impressed rather than losing one.
AJ?
I mean, I just thought that looking at this series, this is a perfect look ahead spot for Kentucky. You come off an emotional series against LSU where you almost get it done, but not quite. And then after Texas A&M, you play Louisville in the midweek, and then you play at Vanderbilt, and then South Carolina, and then Tennessee. So you play 3 teams who you know are going to put up a fight. I think this might just be an overlooked situation of we don't see Kentucky at its most focused. And Texas A&M has the offense to be able to, if you're napping, they can put up a lot of runs in a hurry, and it doesn't matter how many you can manufacture, as long as A&M can throw strikes, which is a question.
But I'm with you. I feel like this was kind of that lull in the roller coaster moment here for Kentucky after last weekend. I feel like this is when A&M is just going to take advantage and get 2 out of 3 here. So I like A&M. I have been hard on Kentucky all year. I don't believe that they're that good. Next one. West Virginia, TCU.
Oh.
Wow. You know what, Noah? Since you did get the dub last night with West Virginia beating TCU, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
The emotions are just flooding in, not just for me for being 1-0 in this one so far, but because of Austin Davis returning to Morgantown. And I don't think the crowd really cared that much, but I did. And I said, this is going to be a West Virginia team that wants to beat their former teammate. And they did. They performed really, really well. Again, J.J. Weatherhold is a name that people have got to learn if they haven't already. He doesn't necessarily have eye-popping stats, but he's a really, really good player. West Virginia, they just took a series from Oklahoma State. They're a hot team. They're a top 25 team across the board. TCU a little bit, almost ACC-like, which I guess is Big 12-like too.
That's fair. AJ?
I mean, it's the Big 12. I literally flipped a coin for this one. I legitimately, you look at it, and TCU, just looking at the rosters, looking at the talent, they should win this series. But again, it's West Virginia has sneakily been a very, very quality team in the Big 12 as well. So it's not like they're playing Kansas.
That's true. Jake?
This one for me was that West Virginia beat Oklahoma State last weekend, and it seems like every team in the Big 12 just goes up and down, up and down. So I really thought TCU was kind of trying to get healthy here, but I guess I did forget how long the either bus ride or plane ride to Morgantown is, and it seemed like TCU kind of came out flat. They were down 5-1 early.
Yeah, this just does. I can't figure out the Big 12. Alex, is there any more insight here? Or is it just standard now?
Yeah, I mean the Big 12 is just like AJ said, it's just kind of a coin flip every week of who's going to win. But for me, for TCU, I talked to Luke Savage earlier this week. Jake and I had an interview with him earlier this week, and he got me all hyped on TCU. So that's where I went. By the way, that interview with Luke Savage will be coming out at noon today, so watch out for that on the YouTube channel.
Heck yeah. There's tons of interviews on the YouTube channel, people, if you haven't gone and watched them. But here's the thing about TCU. I really thought that this is how they could turn their season back and get back after it in the Big 12. Unfortunately, that's a big loss last night. So moving forward.
Oh, Jesus.
What is happening, Noah?
Oh, you let me get hot, Mark. When I sent this game on sent the series on one of the ones that I thought popped this week, you disrespected the Duke Blue Devils, and you said we have too many, where Louisville is the obvious favorite. Duke is sizzling hot right now. There was nobody happier when that grand slam was hit last night, other than maybe the Duke baseball team. But I was a close second when that one went over the fence because Duke
Grayson Allen
came
too, as well.
all the
Noah.
way back. Grayson Allen, he was pretty happy too. He was tripping over it per se.
I did
But
not see
I'm
this
fired
coming.
up.
Yeah, absolutely. You're on fire today. I love it. AJ, Louisville.
I mean, Duke needed a walk-off grand slam to win the game, so you can't look at that and say Louisville played the worst they've played all year.
1-0.
So as a whole, it will be interesting to see how Louisville responds. That's not a loss that many teams take in a season. You don't get walked off on like that very often. So it'll tell a lot about the character of this team, how they bounce back for the rest of the series.
Agreed. Jake.
I mean, how many different ways can Louisville lose games? It seems every single week we talk about them losing in some asinine way. I think that this was just a Noah curse that he picked Duke, and he has to get some of these games back to remain relevant. And I think that was more of the story here, is that Noah's just a really big Duke homer.
My Lakers are on, I think, today.
Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I just keep waiting for this Louisville team to really establish themselves, and they just don't. Like they should be a top 5 team in the country, and they can't quite put it all together, and they just keep kind of shooting themselves in the foot. I think that's more of what happened last night.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that this team was bound to be a top 8 team, and they have not played like it all season. They did early, and then since ACC play started, they've been downhill. Next one. Arizona State. There we go.
Finally.
And he's back, ladies and gentlemen.
There we go.
Complain a little bit here. Jake, I'm going to let you start with this one, though.
I think that this was me more not believing in Arizona State than believing in Oregon State. I think that they've had a few kind of memorable wins and playing a little bit above their weight class with Willie Bloomquist. And I think that this was a kind of series that, Oregon State was going to come down in their suits, tighten their ties, and go, you know what, we're going to show you some Pac-12 baseball. And that's what they did.
Alex?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jake. The Arizona State, yeah, they've played pretty well this year, but they're not quite ready to contend for the Pac-12. They're not ready to be up there with the big boys like Oregon State.
I agree. AJ?
I'm not picking against Oregon State on Mark's bachelor party. That's just
my bachelor party weekend down here in Phoenix at the game. Probably a good decision. I knew Noah was probably going to pick against me. Noah, explain yourself.
Well, I did factor that in. I knew that they were going to lose last night, but you're not going to any other games, are you?
No, I got golf today all day.
We're good.
Casino,
We're good. We could lose one. We had one to lose. We punted last night and still scored 11 runs. We are fine. There's actually an Oregon State fan, I believe, in the YouTube comments, very concerned about your pitching staff. So forks up.
Listen, the pitching staff's going to be fine. We went through loss. We're fine. There's no issues there. Oregon State's going to win this series. I'd love to see a sweep. I don't see it, though. Arizona State's got the bats to keep in the series, but I believe this is all Oregon State this weekend.
Wait, no, do the forks up again. I don't think you did it right.
I just did a simple 3 fingers. There was no magic.
Hey, Noah, just to reflect the symbol you gave me. 1-0.
1-0.
But I
This
had
is forks
I had
up.
2 games,
No.
right? So it's 2-1 now. Catch up.
Do we want to compare records? Do we really want to compare
I
records?
was told that I'm winning. I'm told.
Actually, I
all the
do.
time
I do want to
have.
compare records.
Oh my gosh. Noah, USC, are you just trying to take all the underdogs this weekend?
USC is the better team right now, Mark. I think we all know that. UCLA sucks at the moment. They just can't quite get it together. They are sliding. I think that we prop UCLA up because they have a cool logo and they're a known brand, and they really do have the better team. But USC is playing really good baseball right now. The majority of us picked USC. Mark, you're the Pac-12 guy, but we might have to promote ourselves. Who left? Jake? Good.
I think we
Your
lost
UCLA friends are falling apart.
AJ, USC.
I would actually ask Alex to go look at that DM where I sent him UCLA.
I was going to say the opposite. Is I think I did USC.
Oh, so it's supposed to be flipped. So AJ's on my side. We're the guys who are probably 1-2 in the pick'em.
Hey,
Definitely picked UCLA.
all the data we've heard is that I'm winning. That's all we've heard.
Well, so AJ, you took
Yeah, that's my
UCLA.
bad. I flipped Jake and AJ.
I was
All right.
very confused.
I looked at that and I was like, I might do something like that, but I really thought I was on the UCLA bandwagon here.
I was too, AJ. I really believe that this is UCLA's weekend to turn this thing around and get going right in the Pac-12. I know you and I both believe that.
I very much agree.
Yeah. Jake, Alex, I'll let you go next. Jake left us
honestly,
for a second, so he has to
the
wait.
logic behind it for me was that I think USC beat UCLA last year, and USC was just absolutely dog water. So now that USC is actually good, I was like, oh, they'll still beat UCLA, and I was wrong.
Oh, just game one, but you're probably wrong. Alex?
Well, this is a good example of why you don't drink and make graphics. So, but yeah, no, I just thought USC was kind of the hotter team. UCLA had really cooled. Just didn't know where they were going to get offense from. But USC or UCLA came to play for sure.
Yep, I like UCLA in this one. I think AJ and I have both nailed it all day. It's just that UCLA seems to be a team on the rise trying to fix their season, and they have a chance to do it down the stretch here. Last one here, Army, Navy. Alex, you stand alone.
Oh, geez, I wonder which one of us was in the Navy.
Yeah, there was absolutely no way I was picking Army. 10-year Navy vet. I'm not picking Army. Go Navy, beat Army.
Alex, thanks again for your service, but we're gonna go ahead and say that this is all Army this weekend. They're playing a doubleheader today, though, and we all know doubleheaders are hard to win in baseball, right, AJ?
Yeah, I mean it's also just an emotional series, and it's also hard to win an emotional series. So an emotional doubleheader, it's either going to go one or two ways. It's either going to go one team's going to blow out both games of the doubleheader, or you're going to see one very close game, and then all the emotional energy would be spent on that, and then probably a sloppy second game, if I had to take a guess.
Yeah. Jake?
You say that doubleheaders are emotional, but the Patriot League is famous for these doubleheaders. I know that there's not too many people with their pulse in the Patriot League, but all of their games are actually doubleheaders. So they're used to this. And when you get used to this, I think Navy is just not as talented of a team as Army is. I really like the Black Knights here. I think that they're kind of a dark horse to sneak in to get one of those Patriot League bids and be a 4 seed that gets tuned out, if I'm being honest with you.
Noah?
I know nothing about either one of these teams, and that goes for every sport. But I always just blindly pick Army because I think they always just have a little bit of a cooler uniform when the football game is played. And I've played some NCAA football 14 dynasties with Army before, just never have with Navy. So, Alex, I know that you wish this game was played on a boat. Unfortunately, it's on land, so I've got to go with Army.
Very good. Yeah, I just thought in this one, Army is the better team, but it is an emotional series. We'll see what happens here. Okay, real quick, since we're running out of time, boys, I'm going to have you guys pick one Golden Spikes person, one each, that is not Dylan Cruz, because he obviously was the favorite. Alex, I'm going to let you go first.
So for me, it's Jack Caglione. The guy's a two-way player. He leads the country in home runs, and just a ton of fun to watch.
Yeah, throws 100 miles an hour, about 376, 23 home runs, 59 RBIs. That's a good pick. Noah.
Yep, I was going to go with Jack Hag as well, but just for the sake of variety, I'm going to go with Jake Geloff out of Virginia, just tearing the cover off the ball. It doesn't help that his team likes to do this Iowa basketball Fran fade kind of thing, but Jake is just a dominant player. He's doing it again. It's the Geloff name. Virginia's a family brand, just like Iowa basketball. So that's a perfect comp.
Jake.
It's also the Jake name too, Noah.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with it.
Jake.
I'm going to go Gavin Klein, hitting over 400 with 20 bombs. I think he's the best transfer in the country. And
Gavin
if
Cash?
it's a year
Gavin
where Dylan
Cash.
Cruz is... What'd I say? I said Gavin Klein. Dang it, Gavin Cash. Gavin Klein. I think I combined the Louisville guy for Klein, Eddie Klein, but Gavin Cash hitting over 400, 20 bombs. He's slowly risen his way up the Texas Tech lineup. To start the year, he was hitting about 7th or 8th, and now he finds himself in the top 4. And if Texas Tech wants to be good on he's definitely better than Tommy White as a transfer now. I will die
Can
on
you
that
name one
hill.
other transfer?
But
Maybe who's
Gavin
good?
Cash is my pick.
AJ?
I mean, my pick is, of course, Ethan Petrie. He's freshman hitting 426, 20 bombs. That's tied for second in the country. Yeah, he's behind Caglione, but has more RBIs than Caglione, and he also has, I believe it's 12 or 13 fewer at bats than Caglione as well. Which it's, I mean, what he's been able to do is insane. We've talked about it already. It's for a freshman to be able to come into the SEC and put up numbers like that and sustain that is unreal. And I feel bad for Charlie Condon, because if it wasn't for Ethan Petrie, Charlie Condon would be the most talked about freshman in the country. But he's just slightly behind Petrie in every category, which it's going to be great to see those.
Team.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see those two guys duel it out for the next 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely. Real fast, I'm going to go Rhett Lauder, pitcher for Wake Forest, 7-0, 1.61 ERA. I feel like he has an opportunity to be that pitcher that kind of gets in there. Last year, we had Cooper Jerpy kind of sneak in there late as a top 3 pick. Pitchers get additional stats late in the season, so that's where I'm going there. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us again. I got the bachelor party one more day down here. We'll see y'all next Saturday. We'll be back on again. For Alex Day, Noah Darling, Jake McKeever, and AJ Sessions, Mark Garland, thanks for joining us on the Weekend Rotation. Have a good one. Watch some baseball.
See y'all later.